if we look at all of this as an evolutionary process and a necessary process, rather than kind of taking little snippets of it and saying, well, this is a problem and we need a solution to it, but that everything is moving exactly how it needs to move, that changes the quality of the communication, either with ourselves individually or with other people.
I guess part of it for me is, when you want to fundamentally change people, do you appeal to their logic, rational side, or do you appeal to them emotionally? Where is the impetus of that change? I mean, I think of my own writing, because I have aspects of both of that through various characters. And I think most novels have that. You're looking for that yin-yang kind of balance between our emotional side, the things that we kind of do out of an emotion we're not even quite aware. Some of it may be irrational, non-deliberate, but we feel it very strongly. And we act on feelings even though we've not gone through a logical process of asking whether that action makes any sense or is connected proportionately with what we're responding or reacting to.
Yeah, so there's those two modes of functioning. We could say that we could call them doings.
Right.
And then underneath that is the living experience of incarnation, and that's the being. And each of us has been programmed a little bit more or less to move towards either the more emotionally based side or the more intellectually based side. I see it, the image that I have is of a bird, and you have two wings, and there's the rational intellect and there's the intuitive emotional side, and the bird can't fly without both of them. I think about some of the debates, the atheist, non-atheist debates and things, and they seem to be working perfectly in tandem. And this is one of the things when I was a psychologist and working with couples that I found very interesting. Couples move perfectly together. They just, it's amazing. And the longer that a couple's together, the more perfectly that they behave. And that's not to say that shit isn't happening. One of them can be getting beaten up every week. But there is a unity. There's a unification that's happening. There's a dance that's happening that's much deeper than the rational intellect can give us, or than the emotional response. It's like there's another level underneath all of this.
It reminds me, there's a Roman emperor, one of the 5 good emperors, named Marcus, and he said the art of living is wrestling, not dancing. Which I think is kind of an interesting idea.
It sounds like a Spartan.
As opposed to a Roman.
Or a Grecian.
But, it's Daniel Kahneman, the thinking fast, thinking slow, cognitive scientist. He's basically, I think one of the assumptions underlying this work is that cognitively we're very lazy. Is that we're basically on automatic pilot. When we react to something, whether it's to music, whether it's to someone running a red light, to whether we see someone who's rude in a public place or doing inappropriate, what we perceive to be inappropriate behavior, we don't kind of go through a logical, deliberative process when we filter through that kind of information. That a lot of our day is just, we're kind of almost pre-programmed emotionally to react from one thing to the next, to the next, to the next. And that we kind of feel at the end of the day a little bit car sick, like we've had a bumpy ride, because emotionally we're kind of all beat up from those multiple reactions. But to slow things way down takes a lot of cognitive resources. It means you have to concentrate your attention and focus on things in a way that you normally don't have to do. Like if I say 2 times 2, you don't have to think, it's 4, right? If I say 119 times 59, well, you have to stop and put other thoughts aside and do the calculation. And we're living in a time now where the people who seem to be doing very well are the ones who are doing those complex calculations.
Sure.
You know, making the algorithms. You know, gradually, the artificial intelligence, which you mentioned earlier, is growing, and you know, we're all part of the process. Think about it. We are no different than the people who built Angkor Wat. They didn't know what they were doing. They were just dragging bricks and dragging these huge boulders and cutting them, you know. And it took, you know, dozens and dozens a year. Every time we go on the internet, every time we send an email, every time we open up a browser, every time we want to Google a particular word, it goes into the system by the billions. Those are the stones that are building this Angkor Wat of the future.
Sure.
And we're all doing it. We're doing it voluntarily. You know, it's like we want
maybe
to
unconsciously.
Unconsciously, you go into Foodland, or you go into the Emporium, to the supermarket, and you give them your card, so they know exactly what you bought, when you bought it. Mm-hmm. They're creating these profiles.
Yeah.
So at some point, you get outfits like Netflix that know your taste so well in film. You no longer make a choice; they make it for you.
Right. So
Amazon, they make a choice for you.
Right.
I mean, 75% of Netflix sales are repeat people who've come back and taken a recommendation.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's just an extended example of habituation.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody's been doing that forever, since we've had personalities. That's what a personality is. It's a habituated process. And what's happening now is it's just speeded up, and it's more intense, and it's more information. But the trajectory, you could see it from probably the 1500s. I mean,
Sure.
you look at the amount of stimulation that's coming in, the amount of information as it grows, we respond to it.
Sure.
And one of the ways we respond to it, or the overall way we respond to it, is by habituating to it.
Yeah.
So we become less aware and less linear in our thinking and looking at A, B, and C, and just have it happen. It's like the last phone I got. When I start to make a message, I type in one letter and it gives 3 words, 2 letters, and then 3 different words. And by the time I've typed in 3 letters, the word that I need is there. I can just touch it.
Sure.
You know, and I don't see that as a good or a bad thing. It's just a thing that's happening, and it's in its infancy. I think in some levels.
You know, I saw something a while back. It has to do with what we know about our world and what our ancestors knew about the world. You know, I think it's that our ancestors knew a lot more about nature. Well, they knew hundreds of plants and flowers, but in their growing season, how you would plant them, how you take care of them, how you would, say, cook them or use them. Maybe some of them had medicinal things. And now we are reliant on the internet, Google. We don't have to remember very much.
Right. And
so we know, I mean, actually we know a lot less about nature than people who lived a few thousand years ago, whose life and death depended on that knowledge.
Yeah, I would say we experience a lot less. Their primary experience was contactful connection with nature, where we're abstract. And if we look at McLuhan's idea that our technology is an extension of us.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because
Google is our brain. It's just an extension, and we don't have to keep those all that information anymore inside, because we have it outside. And you know, the singularity, people would be saying, well, that's what we're moving towards, and eventually we'll have an AI that'll take care of all that stuff, and it'll be connected in a way where we may not even have to ask it anything. We can just think it. And
it's like in Her, the movie.
Yeah.
But you know, I was thinking earlier of Marshall McLuhan, particularly the Gutenberg Galaxy, where he talks about the fundamental change. It's not so much. We focus on the internet because we suffer from presentism like most people. Everything is the most important that's happened now because we're part of it. But the most important thing was that transition from an oral culture to a print culture. Mm-hmm. We no longer hear the world the way our ancestors hear the world. We don't experience the world. We are now accustomed to looking at words representations on a page as creating the world for us.
Mm-hmm. And now we're moving away from that again,
yeah,
through the internet and through visualization being, rather than linear, it's becoming more holistic again.